What is up, nerds and nerdettes? Welcome back to the very special episode of The Pull. I am your host, AJ Kunze, and I know what you guys are thinking. Wait a minute, The Pull is that show on the internet where that incredibly handsome man talks about comic books. This episode of The Pull is going to be a little different. This time we're not looking at comic books, we're looking at a movie. In this very special bonus episode, we are talking about Avengers, Age of Adeline. Wait a minute here. I might have seen the wrong movie. Shit. 1 second. Alright, I'm back. Okay, that made a lot more sense. Are you guys ready to watch me commit internet career suicide? I didn't really care for the first Avengers movie. I know, but just give me 1 second. It was a fine and fun movie, but it was very deeply flawed and under-executed in a lot of ways. Here, let me simulate every single conversation in the first Avengers movie. Quippity quip quip quip. Quippity quip 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 quip. All the dialogue was so consistently over clever that all the characters ended up sounding the same. But you're like, that's Joss Whedon's style, what are you talking about? Yes and no, that style worked well for him in, let's say, Firefly, where he is building this world and its norms and its tone, but the Avengers was something that was building on established, not just in the comics, but in its own previously established cinematic universe. And the whole thing just didn't quite fit right. It was a movie that I just felt was under-executed and didn't really show the full vast array of talents that Joss Whedon has. For anyone who's read Joss Whedon's Astonishing X-Men or seen the more leaf-on-the-wind moments of Serenity and Firefly, know that he's capable of creating these characters that you connect with so deeply that they rip open your chest and crawl in and spoon your heart. That got weird fast. Also, it was kind of easy. It was very much a happy-go-lucky, popcorny sort of film. For movies whose scenarios included the mind-controlled allies and aliens destroying New York, it didn't really test its characters. They were challenged, and they teamed up, and they meet the challenge. It was a happy-go-lucky, fun-time movie. Stop by the snack stand and grab yourself an industrial vat of deep-fried popcorn, and a hubcap covered in bite-sized pretzels, and yellow vegetable oil-based cheese substitute. It's gonna be a grand old time for the whole family. Except Coulson's gonna die, and that's gonna be sad and kind of hard to explain to your kid. Can you tell I've never reviewed a movie before? I have taken the first part of this video where I'm supposed to be talking about Age of Ultron and talked about snacks and a movie from a long time ago. I only talk about this because Age of Ultron is an improvement over the first movie in almost every single regard. Anyway, this is a movie that is so much more complex on pretty much every level. First Avengers film felt like it was relying a lot on the cachet of us finally being able to see Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man all fighting side by side, and that would be enough, that somehow the realization of that lifelong fantasy would somehow satisfy us. Well, now these characters that we were once satisfied just seeing, we now explore. We see flaws in characters like Captain America, who was previously so inflappable, so resolute. We no longer see this roided out James Bond figure. We see a soldier terrified by the idea of what he's left with when there's no more battles to fight. We see Black Widow try to convince not only other characters but herself that she's more than an assassin, more than a taker of lives. We see a very insecure Hulk, concerned that because he sees himself as a monster that the rest of the world will too. And we see Hawkeye with, well, actually some level of complexity. He's not just a mind-controlled store mannequin like he was in the first film. Actually, it could be argued that he's the very human heart of this entire picture. But perhaps the deepest and most interesting character is Ultron. Sure, he's a kind of robot Hitler, but Whedon does an amazing job of making him interesting, because Whedon could have been like, hey, he's a robot, he's gonna kill everyone, but while he's trying to do that, it's gonna create some like cool explosions and stuff, so yeah, sit back and watch, I'm gonna take a nap. The crazy thing is, we see where Ultron's coming from. His mission, or his mission statement, his idea, his catalyst is good. He wants peace, but unfortunately he sees human beings as the biggest barrier to it. And while we never root for Ultron, we definitely understand why we cower. Because there are legitimately terrifying scenes in this film. Whether it's the Avengers' first scene with this proto-drunken zombie version of Ultron, or the hopelessness of fighting his later forms, you always feel like he is not only a threat, but the ultimate threat. Like he is something that could not possibly be overcome, quelched, or contained. And this small metal man feels more intimidating and more terrifying and more deadly than all the flying space salamanders you could possibly cover in armor. The entire DNA of this movie is just genetically spliced with all sorts of comic booky goodness. The scene where you introduce Vision and for the first time you see Vision, perhaps the most comic booky character ever, a fucking green and yellow caped robot, is finally on screen and moving around and talking in the real world, and you are just charged with all of this nerd energy. And it's not just the, oh my god, this is so fucking cool feeling. It's more than that. It's a vindication. And I don't mean the vindication of, oh, I was reading this comic book when I was in high school and I was a nerd and all the cool kids made fun of me. Because I've always found that to be a very put upon and antiquated caricature of how that relationship actually works. And let's be real, the people who bully nerds the most are other nerds. Anyway, the reason I felt vindication was this movie is the realization of everything that was proselytized by Guardians of the Galaxy. And when I say that, I mean this movement away from the center. The idea that we're taking something that you, me, and the rest of the people who are kind of in the clique of comic, the idea of taking that and showing it to the world. The idea of sharing something that's made us so happy with everyone else. It kind of makes you finally feel seen. Do you understand now? Do you see me? And do you see what I love the way that I see it finally? I don't know, maybe I'm assigning too much meaning to the silly little movie, but it touched me, and that's what art, whether it's comic books, movies, or whatever, does. When it touches you, when it makes you feel something, when it makes you feel accepted, it's important. It means something, right? Hope you enjoyed this super secret awesome bonus episode of The Pull. So anyway, I've never reviewed a movie before and I don't know how good I am at it, but I hope you enjoyed my take on this film. If this is your first experience with The Pull, this is not normally how it goes. Normally this is a show where I kind of give a review of this week in comic books, giving you the good and the bad that came out that week. But if you like this episode and you want to see more, go check out our older episodes, hit like and subscribe, basically do all sorts of YouTube stuff to this video. Let me know what you thought of Age of Ultron, or Age of Adeline, I guess, in the comments below. Make sure you come back next week and every week until the end of time for an actual episode of The Pull. Now get out of here and go see comic book movies.